Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar Resources for Implementing Accessibility and Usability Testing in Libraries. And this session, we will be providing captionings. So if you want to look at the captions, turn it on at the bottom of the Zoom. You have to click on Show Captions at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This session will also be recorded. We will be posting the recordings at the end of the webinars. It will be posted to our website, www.nwheat.org. And the PDF version of the PowerPoint will also be it's already being posted on the website. So if you want to follow along with the PDF version of the PowerPoint, you can head over to www.nwheat.org and you will find the PDF version of the PowerPoint, so follow along. So let me introduce our presenter for today. Our presenter is Andy Andrews from University of Washington Library. He is the accessibility coordinators, and also our next presenter is Hilary Robbeloth. She is from University of Puget Sound Systems and Discovery Librarian. And we will start with Andy's presentations and then Hilary's presentations. If you have any questions you want to ask during the presentations, please submit them via Zoom chat. We will take a couple of questions at the end of first presentations, and we will take more questions after both presentation is completed. So first is Andy's presentation. The title of his presentation is Accessibility Testing Training for Library Staffs. And before I get started with the presentations, there's one thing I'll talk about is we are conducting a series of webinars. We already have our speaker for our next webinar is Anna Thompson from University of Washington Boston, and she's the lead for universal design for active learning. And the actual date for the next webinar is to be determined, and it will be somewhere in the middle of the fall semester, and we will pick a date based on feedbacks from a survey. So if you have an idea on what the time frame will work best for you, watch out for the surveys. We will sending out surveys at the end of our webinars. And the topic for our next webinar will be looking into universal designs and some pressing issues that we will see during our transition to online. And also, the Ann Thompson has a webinar coming up at the beginning of the August as part of the Northwest eLearn Conference on August 11. And the topic of that session is Accessibility Playbook to discuss course and content design that will help improve accessibility. So so now I'm done with plugging our next webinar. Let me hand over the stage to Andy for his session right now. Andy, take it over.
All right, make sure everyone can hear me, right? Okay. So hi, I'm Andy Andrews, and for the poor lighting. working from home. I got the bank side about that. All right. Make sure I'm sharing. Everybody, yeah, so we can see that, right? Okay. So yeah, so I'm Andy Andrews. I'm the accessibility coordinator at UW Libraries. And so I just want to go over a little bit a process we kind of developed here at UW Libraries for testing of our stuff to increase capacity. We were really inspired by a lot of the testing that the Big Ten Academic Alliance and the ACERL, the Southern, I can't remember what all that is, ACRL, yeah. So we wanted to find ways to also kind of contribute to that work. So I think I'm not in presenter mode. Let me go ahead. Oh, look. Now I've got my presenter and you've got the different screen. Okay. You can tell. All right. I don't like this. All right. Sorry. I'm just gonna do it this way. Sorry, the dual monitor's throwing me off right now. Sorry about that. Basically, the objective today I want to talk about is the process we kind of developed ourselves for testing, kind of what we learned, but most importantly, the value of sharing those results with like you all. And just to give a little backstory about this is that a lot of testing on UW campus happens through the accessible technology services. And they really do suffer campus-wide distribution. So stuff like Office, Zoom, they've tested those kind of products, but you know, they've got limited budget. It's Hadi Rangan runs that and he has 2 or 3 student employees. So we approach them of like, teach us what you do so that we can do it for ourselves with our databases, because we have 650 databases, which, you know, is all, for those in the library, you know, that's a lot of databases. So again, why we developed that process is that UW-IT ATS has limited time and resources. We were looking at what Big Ten and ASERL had done, and with third-party accessibility evaluations, and there's probably about 50 or 60 that are up on their site at this point. And again, we have 650 databases, and so we had a lot that we wanted to be able to contribute to. And we have a lot of staff that was really interested. Since being brought on as the accessibility coordinator in the last 2 years, we've really built capacity. All right, can you all hear me? Yes, no? Okay. So I'm not sure what you missed. It's just that we have the capacity, so we wanted to go with that. So we basically did this 3-day intensive boot camp with Hadi and his student employees. So 3 8-hour days of going through all this. We all had some experience maybe kind of going in. But the thing is, like, once we went through their process, it really taught us to rethink how we were currently testing. I think it really brought to light, like, you see the testing when you look at your reading reports and it's like, oh yeah, like all this keyboard and screen reader, and their process is to actually really start out with just doing keyboard navigation, which is something we've thought about doing too, is just starting with keyboard navigation, and how screen readers, because they can create false instances where something doesn't seem accessible, but it is, because you're not as familiar with it as someone who uses a screen reader all the time. That was really enlightening to think about, that keyboard testing is great to start with, and then that the screen reader is more about confirming the errors that you found. And so that really helped us, I think, change the way we're going. We're still tweaking on it and getting some, fixes here and there how we want it to go. But I think we're going to have a really great product in the end for our staff. And we also realize that testing processes, they need to remain flexible. And what I mean by that is that if we're working with EBSCOhost, right? Huge platform content creator or aggregator, right? So if we're working with something like EBSCO, we might test them a little harder than we would say a one-off like niche platform that just isn't doing a lot, like so that you can encourage the smaller platforms, databases to make changes. So we might come with them with an understanding that they don't have the vast resources some like EBSCO or ProQuest might have. So that's what I mean with that. The testing process needs to be flexible. And then we want to share what we've discovered, but in a way that'll promote change. So it's not just like, here, you did this, you're bad. But hey, we found these issues and we would like to work with you to help you have a better product for all of their customers, so all of our patrons, students, faculty, the public. Like, let's find a way that makes it work better for everyone. Okay, so this is what I guess now that I've given you this is what I really want to talk about, is like that value of sharing.
Andy, I wonder if you might consider turning off your video.
Okay. Let's see. Where did that disappear to? Stop video. Am I cutting out a lot?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if that makes it better. Sorry about all that. Yeah, so that value of sharing, you hear a lot. We can't share this stuff. If we put it up on our website, we might get sued. That it somehow makes us more liable because we've admitted that there's a problem. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't be giving legal advice. But my belief behind that is that that's the wrong way to go. That by sharing the information, it helps us all be better informed, right? Like the library community can gain greater awareness about the accessibility of these products. Like, we know that there's issues, we know that some are better than others, and we know that nothing is perfectly accessible. And then also, hopefully, then vendors can also gain a greater awareness about the accessibility of their products. Especially they can see how they're doing compared to their peers, and like maybe that'll help. Like maybe a little peer pressure will help. And I feel that testing results really hold all of us accountable. We can use it to help hold the vendors accountable, and ourselves as institutions that are subscribing to these products. And a lot of times we have to have them, but we're still, by doing something like testing, by working with the vendors, it's a way for us to help push that, right? Because you've probably heard a lot of the court decisions that have been coming down out of California, like last year, that the library had to make sure that the stuff that they had on their website was accessible, and including products that they're subscribing to. And I really believe that sharing results creates a lot of opportunities, like I've kind of said. So I'm going to, maybe, if I'm on the right screen here, I'm going to show you. So a lot of you heard, of ACERLs and Big Ten's e-resource testing stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and hopefully show you this. So my screen changed, right? It's no longer, okay. So this is, it's still a work in progress, but it is the results of our database testing. Again, this is just on keyboard navigation. so it's kind of phase one. I've still got to flesh out some of the stuff with the project guidelines and stuff like that, but it's going to be an A to Z list, and it's just looking at basic keyboard compliance. Like, can I get around the interface without a mouse? And then the purpose of when a user comes here is they want to be able to perform. So by that I mean performance, can you initiate the search? We found that some sites you couldn't because they used a flyout with a hover only versus like an on-click or something like that. So you couldn't even get to it, screen reader or not. It would have been hard to get there. And then can you retrieve that results? So can I select and open that search result? And then the user result would be, can I read, scroll, navigate, whatever is within that document? So if it opens up a document and there's navigation in there, like, you can still interact with it. And again, this stuff that we have on the page here is still, just keyboard navigation is still basic. We're in phase one. We've started approaching some of these vendors to move into phase two with us, to start building, and once we get some testing done with that, we can also put that up there. And so yeah, we've just got yes. So it's just like yes, no's. We do have a yes with an asterisk, and in that case, you could technically do it so it was technically accessible but not functionally accessible. So maybe it just took way too many keyboard strokes to get to what you needed to do. So that's where it's still accessible, but we would like them to improve on that. Yeah, so I think I'm at my time. Yeah, okay. And I'll put the link to this in the chat when I can, see if I can actually get into it when I am not in the shared screen mode, because that's like messing with my brain. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. So there's that. And I'm only up to D so far. And eventually we'll get to Z. I would like to say that we were only up to maybe C for the first year of this project, and the pandemic actually made it so we got through all the lists because we suddenly had a lot of student workers without work, and we had about 24 students doing keyboard testing over the remote working. So not that I'm happy for a pandemic, but yay, pandemic for accessibility. Okay. I'm done.
Okay. So is there any quick questions for Andy? If so, please submit them in the chat. Harry, how about you go ahead and start your sessions? If I see any questions, we'll gather them in the end.
Okay. I'm just going to add a couple links into the chat for where my presentation is living. And so I'm about to present on the Alliance Ducks user testing toolkit, and then also where you can a link to where you can find that toolkit. So let me try sharing. As Andy said, it kind of messes with your brain, or at least the interface of Zoom. So can everyone see my slides? Hopefully. I also can't really see the chat, so but all right. So okay, my name is Hilary Robbeloth, and I am the Systems and Discovery Librarian at the University of Puget Sound Collins Memorial Library, and I'm also the very new chair of the Discovery and User Experience team at the Orbis Cascade Alliance. This is day 8. So, and so just to tell you what I'm about to present on, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the user testing toolkit, and I've sent a link to how to get to it, but also I'll just bring that up again. And then some highlights. I wanted to just let you know what is inside this toolkit, so kind of have an idea of what you can look for if you later at point of need think, oh, I could use a toolkit for this, then you can go look for it. And then also kind of give you an idea of some of the future goals that the team have. So some background, and I'm sorry for how much wording is on these slides, but I gave you the link so you can go back and reread them if you need it. So the Discovery and User Experience team, which we call ourselves the DUCS team, we've been charged with providing leadership and oversight for the development of and use of discovery systems and services regarding that. So, you know, discovery within libraries it used to be library catalogs, OPACs, and now it's more about discovery layers. We talk about Primo a lot within this team. And this is the super condensed version of our charge, but we have been charged with ensuring that our patrons are able to discover all items locally as well as consortially. So those things that they can request through the Summit program, as well as advocating for user experience, good user experience, and supporting the reference and instruction community. And our documentation, our full charge is at orbiscascade.org/DUX. And so we do this by mostly through the work of our working groups, our standing groups, our project groups, and we have a pretty new, couple-month-old group that you all will be interested in, which is the accessibility group. But like I said, we talk about Primo a lot, so we have a Primo enhancement project group, which look at the things we can vote on, and release testing. This discovery layer is updated quarterly, so testing those new things, training coordination, and the user testing toolkit project group, which I was part of the original group that made this toolkit, and now we just maintain it. So the original group, oops, sorry about that. Several of these names are no longer around, unfortunately, but the original group was chaired by Holly Kubley, and Kate Thornhill, Kathleen Veldhusen, Kathy Watts, Rebecca Merrill, and I were the members that wrote this toolkit. So we formed at the end of 2017. So this was a couple years ago. We made the toolkit pretty quickly in a few months, and then started promoting and made a report on it. The goals were to provide a place that had some resources for user testing that were pretty general. They could be applied across lots of different systems interfaces. And with the idea that there's a very wide range of skill sets across the region, as well as, you know, amount of time people could be devoting to this. Many of us wear a lot of hats, and so we wanted this to be pretty flexible, with the major goal of empowering you to be able to do this kind of usability testing on your own if need be. So lots of different situations, you can pick what works best for you. So it's at the Discovery Documentation webpage, so that's orbiscascade.org/discovery-documentation. And we have lots of different things in here. This is also, by the way, where the accessibility toolkit is probably going to be linked. So check here for all the different things we're working on, but if you're looking for this toolkit, it'll be the one linked user testing toolkit. And so let's go over some highlights. There are 3 major sections I wanted to share with you. The user testing FAQ, which is resources that have been organized by questions, the sample user testing documentation, and the overview for librarians and archivists who are conducting user testing, like how do you get started and how do you do it. So the FAQ is that curated selection of general resources. This is not just about accessibility. This is about user testing in a web environment, but more generally. It's set up in this collapsible format of different questions. So it starts pretty generally, maybe I don't even know what UX is. I keep seeing this acronym, UX. And it goes down to more detail, more specific situations that you might be in. So when you click into it, it'll open that up and show you 1 to 3 resources. So if you clicked on, are there good videos? We've suggested 1 video, rocket surgery made easy, or there might be up to 3. If you clicked into how can I conduct a user test, we provide a couple different things, and the sources are kind of across the map too. They're pretty general. So some of them are coming from academic libraries, but some are also a more general thing like Nielsen Group. The user testing documentation samples are real live documentation, documents that we solicited from Alliance libraries, and they were kind enough to volunteer them, minus some identifying information if it was pertinent, but it's mostly in PDFs, and we have them linked on the toolkit, organized by various scenarios that you might be needing some documentation. Agreement forms all the way down to scripts and tasks. And these are a couple years old. We solicited this in 2017, 2018, but sometimes it's easier to start from somewhere rather than a blank sheet of paper. So your mileage may vary, but hopefully it's helpful to see how others are doing things. And then the one I wanted to go into more detail about is the overview, the user testing overview for librarians and archivists. So this is meant to be kind of a guide, and there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of links. It's a little bit, we're going for a wiki, right? It's on a wiki platform. So you can kind of start digging into it. And I'm just going to show you kind of the table of contents version. So we talk about the 5 components, and then you click in, get deeper and into more details. So the 5 components are designing the test, the study, getting your team together, working with participants, actually implementing your study, coordinating and performing, and then of course analysis and celebration. Like Andy said, sharing this. So coming up with great research questions is super important. Figuring out what a measurable goal could be, methodologies, task scenarios. Who do you need to be testing in this? Well, you are testing the product, not the people, obviously, but like who needs to be helping you with this, and then making that timeline so that you can keep on task. So and then like, oh shoot, what's that? When you get to the page, you can click in and see more information about these things. The team, that page goes into the roles and responsibilities. Hopefully you have a team and you're not trying to do this entirely on your own, but like it might be a team of 2. You who are doing the coordination and facilitating and analyzing, and a participant. depending on how small your library is. But we go into the actual roles and responsibilities, and I think that it can be very helpful to have different people who have different levels of stakes in it, particularly if you are facilitating or have a student worker doing the note taking or that kind of thing. Actually working with participants, so there's a lot more than just 2 points for proctors, but helping your participants understand that this is not a test of their skills, this is them helping us discover the usability of this web page or this database or whatnot. And then we're trying to be objective, but there's also subjective metrics. A report is even stronger with different kinds of information to kind of tell a story. And then how respectful interactions. We linked out to a couple different resources that are very helpful with that, and particularly when we're talking about accessibility and different groups and their different backgrounds. So now you've designed a study, how do you actually perform it? And again, this kind of we link back to and provide more detail actually for interacting with our participants, but also like what resources do you need to actually do this work, and then running a user test. And then maybe my favorite part is analysis and celebration of the results, sharing this. And like I said, you want quantitative and qualitative data. You're telling a story, and so you want it to be rich with different information. Consider doing this in kind of a couple steps, right? You want an initial quick analysis to tell people about, hey, we did this, and this is kind of our initial findings, but also dig deeper into it and provide a deeper report. And we also link out to tips for effective writing. So where do I see this going? So ideally, I think we're going to be incorporating this toolkit into our documentation web pages and moving it off of Confluence. It's kind of weird and separate right now, so hopefully we'll find a solution to be able to do that so that it's all together. And then we're always wanting to add additional resources or update, and if you want to give me some feedback on what we could add, I'd be super happy to hear that. And then we are doing ongoing maintenance, just checking links and that kind of thing. And then very excited to share that we are working on an accessibility toolkit that is being created by the accessibility group. And so kind of our early talks, we're talking about putting in like definitions and FAQ, maybe some sample policies, some testing, audit, and like how to do testing and audits, and then providing like a network of colleagues that are doing this work. Who can I turn to? Which I think is a great idea, a community. And then the accessibility group will be giving an update at the joint virtual meeting that is at the end of this month. So I'm pretty sure they're scheduled for July 29th at this point. And we want feedback from you. So we want to hear from you. I would love to hear your suggestions. And you can email me directly. So I've provided my email, but you could also start a conversation on the DUCS discussion list, which is dux-discussion@orbiscascade.org. And if you're not part of the interest group, I think it's done through Google interest groups, you can email Elizabeth and ask to be on that group. But I think the people, the community that are in the DUCS representatives in general are super interested to hear what people are working on, and are usually pretty quick with answers when I put out questions. So I do encourage you to use this list. If you're into email lists, I understand email can be overwhelming sometimes. But yeah, so that is my spiel. And I would love to hear questions or feedback. Thank you.
All right. So if you have any questions you want to ask to Hilary or Andy, please send them in the chat. Right now, we already have three questions coming in the chat. I'll start with Andy. So there are 2 questions for Andy right now. So the first one is, are there instructions or written definitions for the testing for each category, like basic compliance, perform search, retrieve results, use results, or some other instructions or written documentations? Andy?
Yes, so we do. I don't have it on the site yet, and that will be added. But yes, there is
Andy, this is Wendy. If you wouldn't,
definitions.
Andy,
like I said, the work is, yes?
if you wouldn't mind turning your video off again, because your audio is cutting in and out. Okay. Thank you.
I can try. Let me know. I have another headset if I have to put it in. But yeah, so we do have definitions that were used for the project, and those will eventually, I'll be getting those added up to the site, onto this page. And so they'll be in that section under the project guidelines. We're just making sure the lead on the project, that I have those definitions matching what she envisioned that they should sound like.
All right. Okay, the second question for Andy is, when a library resource tool has been found to have accessibility issues, what does UW do to ensure the student can still access the contents provided by that tool? Like, what do you do when you find there are accessibility issues?
So right now, once we found something that says we haven't, there's no good answer, basically. Some vendors, like EBSCO, if we find a problem, we notify them, and they usually address it fairly quickly. We've had a few vendors where we're like, I think, so that first vendor, let's see, that we tested was the ABC Clio ebooks. And that was one where they had that mouse that was a hover over and not an on click. And so we were able to, so they actually failed everything when we first tested them, and we reached out to them and let them know. So when we see things that we know are quick fixes, we might just reach out to a vendor before we've done any other type of communication. Hey, we noticed this thing. Could you fix it? So we've had some success with a few with that, and they did address it. And so that's great, but there's still, a lot of work. We can't ensure the access at this point to all the tools that we have. And hopefully this work with the site will help foster that. My hope is by having this information out there, and then also with what the Big Ten has, that when you all are dealing with, if you're at conferences, you can bring light to this with vendors. You're having conversations with them, ask them like, hey, so Big Ten did this testing and they had this problem, or University of Washington did this testing and they noticed these issues. Have you addressed them? Because we can't get them all addressed, and it's going to take the army of libraries to I think address all the accessibility problems.
This is Wendy. I'm the one who asked the question. I just have a follow-up with that. If you find
hopefully that answers for.
Yeah, if you find that the tool is inaccessible and you're still using it, but a student does need to have access to that content, is there a process that they can go to in the library to get access? Is there someone they work with? What do they do?
So there's different ways that a student can approach that. They could. We've had students work with, maybe they're doing research and there's a tool that they're using, and so they're working with a subject librarian already, and so that librarian might set up time to work with them to help them with the tool. We've got quite a few research librarians that have made themselves familiar with the product and what needs to happen when they're trying to get somewhere. And a lot of students will also go to the DRS because that's their accommodation provider. A lot of times they will go to that, which is a burden we don't really want to put on them. But I'm glad that the students have that resource, which is also, again, why we're doing this testing and trying to push for the change, to take that burden off the DRS, because unfortunately, that is probably 99% of the time what a student does, is either they have the DRS or their friend or a family member help them, and that's not an acceptable answer, but unfortunately it is the answer right now. And so we're just trying to do as much as we can behind the scenes, and we do let students know that they can, like when they are working with a research librarian, they let them know when and the students says, hey, I have this disability, I can't then if that person doesn't know how to fix it or how to help them, I guess, then they will contact me and we'll try to work something out and use our brains to come up with a plan to help the student. So I try to make myself as open as possible to the students when I've been notified of an issue.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so next I have some questions for Hilary. The first one is, do you anticipate gathering resources for the accessibility toolkits or feedbacks?
Yes, and actually, if Emily's on the call, maybe she can also kind of talk about where that toolkit is, like what kind of things are going to be gathered for it. But yeah, we're likely going to be gathering things into a toolkit.
Yeah, we're kind of, the slide Hilary showed is a good idea of it, but looking at a repository of accessibility policies at other libraries, an FAQ, kind of a guide to different tools and ways to do self-test, do maybe a smaller version of what Andy talked about. Andy's part of the group, so he's a good lead on that. And an FAQ section and kind of an overview of accessibility. And since it's it's part of DUCS, it's very focused on kind of your web presence as a library and not looking at, physical accessibility. So we're trying to be limited in that regard. If that answers. I didn't hear the end of Kuhn's question, so let me know if there's anything else that's helpful to hear.
All right, let's move. The next question is for Hilary. You mentioned moving the toolkit from conference to DOX documentation on Orbis website. Are you concerned about losing some of the features available in conference? And also, it looks like the Alliance is looking for a new CMS for the website. So do you have any insights on that?
That's actually why there's multiple reasons, but that is kind of a impetus to this is I have been talking with Brian about what we might need for that. So
okay. There is one more question here. Do you have any plans to coordinate collaborative accessibility testing across the Alliance?
So at this point, it's not part of the accessibility group's charge. Right now, we're focused on just empowering people with a toolkit and giving them their resources. But I think that we also have the lists that we can communicate to each other, kind of build that community and see where it goes in the future.
All right. So far, that's all the questions I have. If you have any more questions, you can post them in the chat. One thing I want to mention is our joint accessibility working group, the Northwest Heat. We are starting a new email listservs, and I'll be posting the way to subscribe to the listserv in the chat, and we will be posting additional resources to the listserv. We will be posting like upcoming webinars and other resources we gather onto the chat, onto the listserv. But also, it's important that we want to create a community of practitioners on accessibility, so that you guys can chat with each other and finding out each other's specialties and their success stories. Or oops. All right.
Can I ask a quick question about the listserv?
Go ahead.
So do you just email that
Send
with
the email,
subscribe?
yes.
In, the subject heading?
Yes. Send an email to that address, nwheat+subscribe@groups.io, and it will sign you up to the listserv.
Okay.
All right. If there is no more questions, I guess that's it for now.
I got one thing to add.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think it goes back to the question. Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Back to the question about if I know it's out of the working group, the standing group for the share, like the alliance-wide testing. If you end up doing your own testing, and you are going to publish that, please let us know at the University of Washington. And I say that because we are going to link out to other testing. So right now that table will have, so like Big Tinston testing, it'll link out to that. So if you've done work, we want to share that too, like as a way so that everybody has, everybody knows what everybody has done, and that way we can all contribute to it also.
Andy, this is Radka. I just have a quick question. So you already have sort of resources that you link to. Can you share that with us too? Or is it just your internal at UW?
The resources for like our testing, I have to move some stuff into another folder so I can make it public. So if you want that, go ahead and email me at andy4@uw.edu, and I will set up another public folder and put stuff in there, just because anything that we've got in progress that's with a vendor, we would want not that to be out in the public at this point, just because we're in a relationship with them and we don't want them to feel like betrayed. So anything, so some of that stuff I can definitely share, and I'll get a folder that. So just email me and we'll share that.
But that would be only shared with like each individual institution. This would not be something that you could contribute to that DUCS accessibility toolkit, right?
Good question. Maybe when I meet with the rest of the DUCS people on the toolkit, we'll talk about it and see if they want it up there. Because I think some stuff can definitely be out there for the public. Yeah.
And sorry to jump in, but one area I think I left out was kind of having a place where we can say, here's what the Big Ten has tested, here's the type of testing they've done, here's, just linking out to all the different places, but kind of keeping track of like, okay, this place has done keyboard testing in August of 2018. So it might not be super up to date, but it's something to start with, so that as you're trying to figure out a certain database or testing you want to do, you can kind of get a sense of what's already been done. So UWs could be a part of that or something too.
And I think Ohio Link as well, they do also their consortial testing. That's what I was thinking in the beginning, because they divide the Ohio Link libraries, they divide different testing among themselves so that not everybody's reinventing the wheel. So I was just thinking if something similar like that we could do within the Alliance.
All right, that's a good discussion we have right now. All right, so after this webinar, we will be sending out surveys to everyone, and also we will post the recording on our website, nwheat.org. And okay, thanks everyone for participating, and thank Andy and Hilary for presenting in today's webinar. Thank you. We will see you soon in our next installment of the webinar. Goodbye.